the things you talk about are so unique. So I'm actually going to dive right in. Right, that there's a lot spoken about what is that first drink that you have in the morning. And something that you talk about is drinking ghee in warm water.
Yeah.
Where is that coming from?
So it has its roots in Ayurveda, okay? And there's so many practitioners, healthcare practitioners, even in the West, who are actually imbibing it. Now, we have to understand our gut produces something known as SCFAs, short chain fatty acids. And these are what actually help bring your immunity up. Okay, this is what actually makes your gut lining smooth. This is what allows food to pass through easily. And the best part is that ghee has short chain fatty acids. So when you have it first thing in the morning, it's almost like you are putting a lining on your gut. You're priming the gut to behave in a certain way. I always say the first thing that you have in the morning really sets the tone for the rest of the day. Because a lot of people, they wake up feeling hollow or acidic or gassy in the morning. And if you can nip it in the bud then and there, you will be surprised how smooth the rest of your day will be. And there's that old saying in Charak Samhita that says, beg, borrow or buy, but have ghee every day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's how important ghee is in our culture. And I'm just so glad that the world is waking up to it. But that is how important it is. That's why we have ghee in our laddus, ghee on our parathas, ghee over dal chawal, ghee in our khichdi. If someone's sick also, we make sure that we give them.
But isn't it like literally drinking fat?
It is literally drinking fat. And who said it's a bad thing, right? I think that's an old narrative. That's an outdated narrative to say that fat makes you fat. Fat makes you fit. Do you know that your neurons, which are your brain cells, have a lining of fat? That is what allows you to be receptive. So the stronger it is, the more fat it has, the faster your brain functions. So your brain directly needs high quality fat. Your sex hormones require fat, right? If you want to absorb vitamin A and D, they're fat soluble. So if you're not having fat, you'll have weaker bones. You'll have, poor quality skin, because vitamin A is great for skin, vitamin D is great for strong bones. So ghee kind of gives you all of those benefits.
And what are some other fats that we know of and kind of are part of our regular lives? As
coconut. Coconut is amazing. Tender coconut, your, mature coconut, coconut milk. Great.
You're from the south, right? Yeah. The coconut chutney.
Coconut chutney, yes. Coconut chutney. Of course, there's avocados.
Yeah.
Then there are your nuts, right?
And what about butter and cheese, our favorite things?
Of course, makhan. White makhan. That is amazing. It's very good. In fact, if you're not able to sleep at night, half a teaspoon white makhan.
Really?
It's very good. It'll really make you sleep like a baby. In fact, how...
And you just have it raw.
Yeah. You can just have it raw. And
what does that do?
So that basically what happens is, if you're somebody whose sleep breaks a lot at night, then having this actually smoothens your digestion. Most people don't realize that if they're having broken sleep, it's because their digestion is not okay. So this really soothes out the digestion and it makes you sleep like a baby. And next day morning, you have great digestion, and then you kind of feel fresher. Your energy levels.
It's so crazy you say this, because that's also why you don't sleep in pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I had such a hard time sleeping in my pregnancy, but what would put me to sleep is having an antacid.
Yeah.
So having that antacid, or in my case, even a hingoli, works very well as an antacid. That would just 10 minutes and I would sleep, because it was actually easing my digestion.
Yeah. That is the number one reason people do not have good sleep. And they don't realize it. And depending on what time of the night your sleep breaks, tells you what's wrong with your body.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if your sleep breaks between 2 and 4 a.m., then chances are that your liver is under stress. If you are unable to sleep between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., then that basically means that you're having some kind of excess heat. So you probably have some sort of acidity in the body. And if you're not able to sleep past 4 a.m., which, by the way, 4 a.m. is Brahm Muhurat, you should ideally try and get up then. But if you're really having trouble sleeping, then, large intestine could be an issue. So all of this, like small nuances, right? Nobody talks about this. We're not taught about it in school. We should be.
But how did you learn about all this and how did you educate yourself? And how do you know so much? Because your knowledge is like incredible. I'm currently obsessed with the gut, by the way. I'll tell you a bit about my journey later, which is why I've been having a lot of these conversations. And I can see that your knowledge is very deep. So
Yeah, I think my journey started with modern clinical nutrition. So I'm a trained clinical nutritionist. But I started to realize very quickly that in actual practice, a lot of the things that we've been taught doesn't actually apply. For example, somebody has IBS, one of the best fruits recommended for them is berries, but they're not able to digest that. We always say that if you want to be healthy and strong, you have to eat protein. Most people with gut issues and hormonal issues cannot digest the amount of protein that is required. So everything that modern nutrition tells you fails in the face of gut and hormonal issues. And that's when my journey started, right? And I always went back to what was taught at home. And I realized that my mom just intuitively will never ask me to have raw fruits if I'm having gas, right? And I started to question, why is this the case? And why are these so many like common beliefs? Everybody knows it. Everybody, follows it in some form. But then like,
where's it
coming from? Right? And I think that's where my formal education in sort of Ayurveda and all that started. So, because we all follow Ayurveda, but if you ask somebody, what is the classical textbook for Ayurveda? They probably don't know, right? So there's a lot of stuff said about Ayurveda, but there are very few who are actually following it from the classical textbooks. So,
did you go to them?
Yeah. So Charak Samhita, Ashtang Hridaya, these are the, OGs. This is where you get to see the maximum information. And then once you've read them, you realize that so much on the internet that is sold as Ayurveda is actually not Ayurveda. And I'll give you an example. Oil pulling. They say oil pulling should be done with coconut oil. That's actually the biggest myth. Because the Charak Samhita clearly says that oil pulling can be done with a lot of substances, but for a normal adult, it should be done with sesame oil. Sesame oil is the best oil for oral health. And in fact, coconut oil can be detrimental for your digestion.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So sesame oil, black cold pressed sesame oil specifically. So this is from the source itself, right? And it's just so important for us to have access to all that authentic information. And very soon you start to kind of see patterns also. And that's how my interest started. Because I feel in that sense people relate because they are also like that, right? They have their moms and grandmoms telling them something, but they've been taught this scientific way of looking at things. So when those two come together, it's just like an aha moment, And they're like, oh, yeah, wo hota hai. So,
true. So I was telling you about my experience, but I wanted to ask you, what is this obsession with hing? Especially in the Indian household. Does it really solve as much as they say it does?
Asafoetida, yeah. It's such a powerful drug in terms of improving the peristalsis. It's antispasmodic, basically. So peristalsis is the natural movement of the muscles that allows food to go down, right? And hing actually allows for that to happen smoothly. And it is a powerhouse. In fact, so many classical Ayurvedic medications and formulations have hing as their main star character. Like one of the biggest things, like you say hingoli, right? Hingoli is such a common thing in most Indian households. The classical formulation is hing vastak churan. So the star ingredient is hing, and then there are other spices that actually help with movement of food.
So if someone is suffering from acidity, would they rather have a pharmacy bought antacid or would they rather have a hingoli?
Actually, if you're suffering from bloating, hing is the best. If you're suffering from acidity, fennel is the best.
Which, coming to fennel, so I've heard that chewing fennel after meals really helps with digestion. I think we've all been to a restaurant and kind of been served fennel. It's just a part of our culture. Is that true, false?
It is 100% true. Fennel, especially with rock sugar, which is mishri. So you usually see this in combination, right? It's very good for your digestion. It brings down the acidity. And it actually brings down inflammation. So it's very good for the gastrointestinal tract in general. And there is the right way to have fennel also. Because a lot of people have fennel water and they love sipping it through the day. I always recommend against that because too much can also cause like excess prolactin. But the best way to have it is in chewing it after meals, along with a little bit of mishri. Both have a beautiful cooling, regulating effect on your digestion. You can also turn fennel into soft sharbat. Great way to end acidity, and especially great for the summers.
What is the recipe for that?
So you can take a little bit of saunf, khas, black pepper, elaichi, and mishri. Blend it together and just take half a teaspoon, put it in water, and drink it. Tastes yum, and it's very good for acidity.
Interesting. I've actually never heard of that one, by the way.